I haven't always known I wanted to be a director. I did still photography at school and I did politics, and I really liked both. And I applied for about 1 million courses when I left school, when I finished school, because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I managed to get into the Swinburne Film and TV School, which at the time was one of only 2 film schools in Australia, because the technology made film schools incredibly expensive. It was all film at that stage. I'm not quite sure why they accepted me into the film school. I often think that they only had one Catholic private school girl apply, and they wanted one Catholic private school girl, so they said, oh well, she's the only one who applied, so she gets into really, so I went straight from school into film school. So I didn't know I wanted to be a director. I directed a couple of shorts when I was at film school, and I hope they've burned the negatives because they were seriously terrible. And by the time I finished, I knew I liked production. And I thought I wanted to direct, and so I went into crewing on films. Actually, Crawford Productions, which was a huge production company at the time, rang up Swinburne and said, if you've got anyone, we can train up in continuity. And at that stage, it was very gender-based, and only women did continuity. So I put up my hand for it, and they trained me up in continuity, which, as it turned out, is one of the best ways you can train to be a director. Not many people know that, but I tell my students all the time, because you're next to the director all the time, you're watching what they're doing, you have to deal with the actors all the time, and you're also checking everything and getting all the material together for the editor. So you're always figuring out, is that shot going to edit together, and is that working, and have we got the script covered, yada yada. Anyway, fantastic training. So after doing that for a while, I knew I wanted to be a director, and then the opportunity came up to get trained as a director with ABC TV. So then I knew. So I guess it happened pretty quickly. So I got trained when I was 24 years old by the ABC, and I've been directing ever since. When I started in television drama, and there were no women working as directors in television drama. It was a bit different with feature film. Gillian Armstrong had directed by that stage, and I think Jane Campion's career was just starting. But television was very, very blokey. And I still remember the first 2 women that got trained by Crawfords to direct, and because Crawfords were doing all the TV drama in Australia at the time, and they were given a very tough time. I mean, Crawford supported them to become directors, which is great, but the crew were, they gave them a really hard time. They were very brave women. So the first 2 women who were trained up as TV drama directors, I thought were incredibly brave, because they were made to jump through hoops that no men ever had to jump through. So when I started, television was very sexist, and I was there when the first females got trained to direct, and it was considered before that they couldn't. Females couldn't be first assistant directors. Females couldn't be DOPs. It was incredibly sexist. So that has definitely broken down, and there's far more movement for women to move through the system. And a lot of women now, in fact, it might even be the majority of women now, of producers are women. Probably the main issue for women, and it's not just in film and TV, it's if you decide that you want to go and have kids. And as a female, if you decide that you want to go and you actually want to care for the kids, particularly when they're young, the film and television industry is pretty unfamily friendly. Your standard working week's a 50-hour week, and it usually ends up being a 60 to 70-hour week. It's very physically demanding. So that's one of the difficulties of whoever, whether it's the male or the female, decide that they want to be the main caregiver in the family. Film and TV is not particularly friendly to that. I've only directed one film for cinema, which was the first Fagin. That was the last big thing I directed. But there's definitely always been a gap between directing for cinema and directing for TV, and directing for doco, because I've done a lot of doco directing as well. I find that the feature film world tends to look down on the television world, and both of those worlds look down on the documentary world. The difference with directing for cinema is that you're directing for a very big screen. So the stories and the storytelling requires a different emphasis. you've got to convince people to leave home, to pay money, to come in and sit down and look at something on the big screen. And just the size of the screen itself requires a different sort of storytelling. And I guess you could say, it requires really high-end skills. Television, though, I have to say, because most of my drama directing has been for TV, is a fantastic training ground, and I think most of the best drama for Australian screen is actually coming out of television now. I think Australian television drama, the writing, the technical standards, the directing standards, the editing standards are fantastic. There's some great work coming out. The thing with TV, directing TV drama, is it's very fast and furious. But if you go in and decide that you want to be a TV drama director, you're directing all the time. You're directing hours and hours and hours of drama content for an audience, for a big audience, usually a much bigger audience than you'll get for most Australian feature films. And so unlike an Australian feature film director who might find that they're directing something once every 5 years, you're directing all the time. And so your skill level just grows and grows and grows and grows. So I think that tension between feature film and television is artificial. What's happening now actually is that it's breaking down, and that people are moving between the two fields. So Jane Campion, for example, just directed a long form series for cable television, and she actually said that she found it a great experience because she could tell the story over a really long period of time. So that is breaking down a bit. I think partly because a lot of feature film directors can't afford to stay alive unless they go and direct TV. So, that's where the money is. Look, I'd have to say TV is not a writer's medium, it's a producer's medium. So often a producer will come up with an idea, or a writer will approach a producer with an idea, but the producer sets the style. So the producer employs the writing team, the producer employs the entire creative team, so all the heads of department, and the producer sets the style. So when you're working as a TV drama director, you work to the producer's brief. So they're not interested in your authorship being noted. In fact, they want your stuff to look like everyone else's stuff. And that's the point of being a drama director. You're part of a team that creates a particular product that looks like this. If you can't do that, then you're not the right person for that product, for that project. So that's the way it works. At the same time, of course, you get the job as a television drama director because you can deliver the style that they want. And television isn't about high art. Usually it's about an incredibly good story, very well told. And so really they just want directors who can bring in the house style. I've been nominated for a few things, but and I won a couple of awards with documentaries. But from my point of view, the awards haven't meant anything because I haven't really won any. One of my docos got nominated for an AFI award, and one of the episodes of I think Home and Away that I directed got nominated for an award. But look, I've been on the selection panel for a couple of for the AFI awards. It's very difficult in the end, sometimes I think it's a bit of a chook raffle. I don't work really in an area where awards make much difference, because in television no one's that interested in awards. What they're interested in is ratings. So if the show that you're working on rates well, then everyone's interested in you as a director, or and particularly with documentary, because a lot of the documentaries that I've done are one-offs. So if my one-off documentaries rate well, then they know that I make product that can draw an audience to television. In the world of feature film, of course, awards make a huge difference because it's a big marketing pull, and it does have some cachet in television, but not nearly as much as if I was working in the feature film area. Look, I think there's so many different sectors of the market now. So when I started, there was really feature film and television, and it was all linear too. So you went home and you turned on the TV, or you went to the movies, and they were the two avenues that you could show your work on. And then there was the film festival market. That's been there for a long time. What's happened now is with the internet and with the digitisation of the technology, there's these multi-platforms and there's multiple ways of producing something and putting something together, and there's multiple ways of getting stuff to an audience. So in one way, there's a lot more opportunities for emerging filmmakers because you can go off and make your own web series. You can make a 2 to 3 minute, 2 to 3 minute per episode web series, put it up on a YouTube channel, do a great social media campaign, get attention drawn to it. Then a multi-channel network might, find out that it's on and think, right, that's getting a lot of hits. So you can create your own product and you can actually create your own audience in a way that you never could before the existence of the internet and the digitisation of technology, which has made it much cheaper and much more accessible. So in one way, there are far more opportunities. But I was just reading something recently, a theoretician who was describing the internet as the economy of the internet is the attention economy. So with television, it's all about eyeballs. Advertisers always talk about getting the eyeballs. With the internet, it's getting the attention. And the issue with the internet, of course, as we all know, is that there's so much stuff. There is so much stuff. How on earth do you get anyone to pay attention to your stuff? And that's the difficulty that there is now. So you can go and do stuff, but the marketplace of product is way, 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 way more crowded than it used to be. So there's opportunities in ways that never were there before the internet and the digitisation of technology, but there's far, far more competition. Other thing is that when I left film school, for example, there were two very clear pathways into having a career. You went to Crawford's and you got trained up, and usually the men started in the transport pool and the women started in the typing pool, and you made your way up. And a lot of people I work with now started at Crawford's in the transport pool, the typing pool, and now they're DIPs on feature films and they're editors on feature films, and they've got international careers and all sorts of stuff. Or you went to the ABC, because the ABC had a fabulous training program, and that's where I got trained as a director. But they also had this fantastic training program for technicians where they'd take in a certain amount of people per year, and you got to try audio production and cinematography, and then you picked and then you got trained. And a lot of those people are working in the very high end of the industry. There's not those formal pathways for training now, and that's difficult. My students, they ask me, what do I do when I leave here? And there's no set pathway. You actually have to create your own opportunities. But it's much easier to create your own opportunities in a sense, because particularly pre-videotape, but high-end videotape and now digital capture mechanisms, you had to get a film camera, and it was incredibly expensive. And you could only show a film in a cinema with a projector, and then how did you get people to come and all that sort of stuff. So it's changed, and I don't think it's any easier. It's just incredibly different.